What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916. You're tuned in to another fresh out interview. Make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe button. I'm here with my man Chris from Orange County Dockside, the author. Man, this is an interview in the making, and he's got a story to tell, so we're going to get into it. Chris, tell the people a little bit about your background, like where you grew up and like where you're from.
All right, so I grew up in the city of Orange, which is in Orange County, California. It's a well-off area. It's always been a good place to raise your kids. And you know, when I was growing up, we had it really well, you know. And then somewhere down the line, my dad started using drugs, and he eventually, you know, became a pretty bad drug addict and lost everything. You know, so what eventually happened was my parents got divorced, and you know, we obviously went to live with my dad. We went to live with my mom, just back and forth several different times. But my dad had a roommate who was a big-time cocaine dealer. He was Italian, and I was like 13 years old, and we moved back in with my dad. And I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, you know, it was New Year's night, like 1983 or 1984, somewhere around there. My dad started me and my best friend on cocaine. You know, I've said this, I've done several interviews, I've said this several times, but it's pretty pertinent in my life that was a life-changing moment for me.
How old were you?
I was 13.
Wow.
You know, so what eventually happened was, you know, being a young kid, you glamorize that stuff. You think it's, you know, it's gonna be all great. You're using drugs, you're cool, your dad's doing it. My friends are coming over, they're doing it. You know, I'm getting lines for doing the dishes, getting cocaine for Christmas. If I did good in school, which was rare, I'd get a little cocaine here, you know, but that destroyed my life, you know. And that's a great area to grow up in, you know. That's a very well-off area, especially Villa Park, when you know, the other side of Orange. But that definitely, you know, it put my life on a bad track, you know. And it didn't take long for me to end up in juvenile hall. You know, not even a year later, I was in juvenile hall for me and my friends vandalized the school. And, you know, from there, it just continued to get worse.
Yeah, I know, man, you talk about like the drugs, and at that age, I didn't use the drugs, but like around 15, I seen coke, it was crack, selling crack, and then you know, it's the same, it's a pool.
Yeah.
It's a dark energy, man.
It's bad.
It don't matter if it's soft or hard, if you're
Yeah.
using or not using, you're selling. It's just a lot of dark energy with that, man, and it's just like, you know, 'cause I'm quite sure we grew up around the same era, man.
Yeah.
And it just had a big influence on a lot of young people at that time.
Yeah, it's like the epidemic with the fentanyl now.
Yes.
You know, but
Yes.
the fentanyl's worse, of course,
Yeah.
but people are dying left and right. But
What was it like in juvenile hall back then?
juvenile hall was, you know, I just remember, you know, walking in as just a baby, you know, pretty much, and just, you know, the door shutting behind me. I'll never forget the clack. You know, juvenile hall doors, they're loud.
Yeah.
They all loud.
Yeah,
You know, when you're a kid,
yeah.
clack, that door shuts, you're just like, oh. But I remember going out to breakfast in the morning the first time, and, you know, it's all, you know, mostly the kids from Santa Ana at that time.
Yeah.
Santa Ana and Anaheim, you know, all the Mexican gangs. And
Santa Ana's deep.
A few blacks, there was
Yeah.
a few blacks there, you know, and it was just, everybody was just, had a mean look on their face. I remember, you know, me being just and I was a small kid at the time. I was like 4'11", sucked up from doing cocaine, you know, but I was a small white kid, man. And I don't think I ever even seen another white kid at that time. But I just remember the looks on all these guys' faces, man. You know, they were just heads down, you know, just, and I ate breakfast, and then they called me, you know, after breakfast, before, you know, even lunch. They popped my doors, took me to some place where my dad was, and I don't know, some supervisor, and said, okay, we're gonna let you out on probation, and then they let me out. You know, on probation.
Yeah.
But that was, I'll never forget that, you know, being a kid, and just, you know, I ended up back in juvenile hall a couple times after that, but for a little time. I actually did a little time, but I remember that first time the door shut behind me, you know.
Yeah, that juvenile hall. I remember my mom came to see me. She was so upset, man.
Yeah.
She was like, damn, and she just gave me a look, and I didn't know what to, the kid, they're in that phase right there, I think like 13, 14, 15, you're trying to find your identity. And so you're kind of, you're latching on to different things, and you're just really, it's a really vulnerable time period for any young man in general, young kid in general. So, yeah, that was a rough period for me too, because I've been to juvenile hall too, man, and it's that door, man, and then like you said, the dudes is mad dog, his gang members up in there, and everything is based on like these guys. It's all physicality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like dudes? You talking about bullying or bullies?
Yeah.
That's the place, man.
Yeah, it's and it's funny you say that your mom was mad. So when I get home, I walk in and my dad's roommate is standing at the door, like inside, and he's pissed. They're not mad that I got in trouble.
Yeah.
They're mad because I could have brought the cops to the house and got everybody busted.
Oh, oh shit.
They're like, you could have brought the cops to and I'll never forget that look on his face. And then it's funny because I just kind of laughed at him. And he goes, yeah, he'll be right back in. He'll be right back in. Here he is selling drugs and, mass quantities of cocaine. And he's, that's the way I looked at it. You're ridiculing me for, that was just,
rational.
That whole situation just made me rebel in life, period. That was like, that just took me down a very dark path that it took me a long time to come back from, but I wouldn't change it for the world because it's made me who I am today,
Yeah. I mean, the character, as far as, like you said, the ability to overcome adversity, I mean, I think back to that, and, my mom, my grandmother, all these people that cared about me, and yet I didn't want to keep getting in trouble, but somehow, just the streets and the drugs and the money and stuff, and it's just like, these life lessons, and then you see these guys, and you're like, oh man, I didn't know you've been here too. Because, guys ain't been in school, but they've been in juvenile hall, for the last 6 months or 3 months or whatever. So, yeah, it's definitely, man, it's an experience, man. And I think, like, a lot of kids, like, they got rid of a lot of juvenile halls, but they just don't know, like, how serious a lot of stuff they're doing is, because they don't get locked up. Like, back then they were locked, you get a warning, and then you get locked up, or you go into the boys' ranch, or CYA. I don't know if you went to CYA.
No, I never made it there.
Okay, because that was the next step.
I wasn't that out of control yet.
Okay.
It took me till I was like 20 or like 18 to really become, a dumbass.
So from juvenile hall then to 18, like, what was that time period like?
That was just a lot of drugs, dude. So, my dad ended up getting busted like a year and a half later. And so I went to live with my mom for a while and then went back with my dad. And, we were going to Santa Ana at this point because we were all drug addicts now. So we're going to Santa Ana after he got busted to get drugs. And then I was the one going to get the drugs for my dad. It became, I'd come, like my friends would be there on Friday night ready to pick me up. We're going to go out, and Dad would get home from work and he'd be like, hey, can you go to Santa Ana and get me some Coke? I'm like, my friends are here, I'm leaving. And, he'd get mad. And there's a couple times where I didn't realize it till, years later, sitting in prison and thinking about the whole situation. Because, when you're doing time, you think a lot. And my dad actually put me on restriction for not going to get him Coke a couple times.
Damn.
So this is how he did it, though. It's manipulative, but you'll see you'll understand it. So like I'm coming down the stairs after I told him no, and he yells at me, hey, get in here, you haven't taken the trash out. You're on restriction. And then when I take the trash out, there's only this much in it, And it took me a long time to realize what he actually did.
Oh, man.
And then I would go get him cocaine, and then I'd come back, and he'd give me a little Coke, he'd give me an extra $5 for allowance, and then he'd say, okay, you can go out now. But it took me years to realize that actually what he did. But you see it now, though, right?
Yeah.
He was sick, man. I had resentments for him for a long time, and it ruined my life for years, blaming him for all my problems. But I'll just say that he was sick too, man. He obviously was controlled by the devil, the drugs, man. And he was a good dad, and then it just went bad.
Yeah, that world, you try to master it, and it's like there's no mastering that, man. That stuff is, if you escape, without a scratch, there's still something that's left behind, you know?
Oh, you never forget where you came from.
That's why it's so crazy when I hear like it's like the glorification, like people brag, oh man, I was doing this, I sold that, do this, and it's like, dude, what, you know, in the wake of all that, you know, what was left behind?
Well, see, that's what people see. I learned a lot of this stuff through a lot of the courses I took, like Victims Impact. Like the majority of the drugs are being sold. You don't know who you're selling them to. You're selling them to people, but you don't know what they're doing with those drugs. Are they giving them to kids? Are they doing bad things to kids? You're poisoning the community. Yeah. Essentially, you're poisoning the community. And I did it for years. And now that I understand the ramifications, I can understand the ripple effect of what happens when you sell drugs, when you shoot people, when you cause crime, when you got some poor guy that's going to work, 10 hours a day with all his tools in his truck, making a living for his kids. And then you got the dope fiend down the street stealing all his shit and you're buying it, and this guy can't, there's just so much that goes
you're
that,
right.
Like me being an electrician now, I got all my tools. I have enough tools in my, I have enough tools where I can go into any house or any place and do any kind of electrical. And I make a ton of money doing electrical now. I'm starting my, I'll have my own license by the end of the year. I'll have my own company. I pretty much have my own company right now and a regular company I work for. But without those tools, I couldn't survive. And it's thousands of dollars worth of tools. But I remember that, now that I think back, I remember guys coming with just a grip of tools, man. All sorts of tools, all different kinds of tools. And we would just buy that stuff up and, but that's somebody's life, dude. And that's drugs. You sell drugs to people. You're supporting people coming with stolen goods. It just can go on and on.
Well, you made a great point, and I've said this before, and people ask me, or they didn't ask me, somebody made a stupid comment. They're like, what kind of ex-con are you? You sound like you're for the system, because I want the streets to be safe. Yeah. I want my mom to not have to worry, Yeah, I'm a dude, I've been in prison, I can handle myself, but what about my little sister?
Yeah.
What about my cousins? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not a gangster world where everybody has to build it's not that bad. If there's one carjacking, if there's one lady getting mugged or kid getting took, that's enough. That's over enough, So I try to just put it in perspective, and I'm not saying to militarize the city, but I'm saying, dude, well, check the people around you. Check check the community. You see, you can't let things get buck wild and then get mad when they bring in the big dogs.
Yeah, so that's interesting you say that. So my buddy Ronnie Harrow, we started a nonprofit. It's called www.star2023.net. His part of it, he wrote a book called The Encyclopedia of Self-Help. His part is his books, he's getting into prisons. He's already been into a couple prisons in California, and we're going to try to get him in all the prisons in California. But his goal is to stop people from coming back to prison, to save that one person that's getting carjacked, to save that one kid that's getting murdered. My goal with my book, Orange County, The Dark Side, that is more geared towards at-risk youth. So my goal in 5 years, is to have a couple of vocations that are set up in Orange County to where kids who drop out of school or, graduate school that don't have the money to pay to become electricians for free, they can come to my school and I could teach them to be electricians. I can have a crew of guys that could teach these kids how to be electricians to put them on a great career path. But it's very important that, I don't care anymore what people think. I think, these cops out here, and these cops in prison, they got it rough, dude. Especially these days. I think that, a lot of these people that are looking down on what we're doing today are still in the mindset that they're never going to be anything better because they don't know anything better. And I think that's a problem. And that's why I think it's story. That's why I like telling my story, because where I came from the lowest possible place you can come from in the system. I had a life sentence and was never getting out. And I've been out 4 years, and I'm going to have my own electrical license and my own company at the beginning of the year. And I grew up thinking, I'm never going to be anything. I can't do school. I got ADHD. My dad turned me into a drug addict. I grew up thinking that for years until I realized, I stopped blaming all my problems on everybody but myself and took responsibility for my life. I got my AA degree, I got my electrical vocation, I wrote a book, I've done all this stuff I never could do in the matter of like 7, 8 years. And now look at me. And those guys that are saying this about us, that people like us are doing this, they're stuck in that mentality that they're never going to be anything better because they don't have anybody to tell them they can be better.
Plus, the thing is like the crabs in the bucket mentality, where you're doing something, they don't want to have accountability, so they don't want you to be putting it out there because it makes them have to reflect and look at themselves. You know, a lot of guys, you know, the police, the government, everybody wants to blame everybody but themselves. Once you start realizing that you have the power to make the change, you can make choices, you don't have to do this, you don't have to be this type of whatever you're trying to become because you're trying to keep up this image. Be yourself, find your identity, you know, and then realize whatever God gifted talent He gave you, you can live, and that's what it's about. So a lot of people, you know, they just don't want to have to change their pattern. So it's easier to talk shit and to continue doing what they're doing because it requires no energy. You know. So what was the incident that actually led to you getting a life sentence?
Okay, after paroling, I shot 2 people in 95 and got 6 years, 85% with 2 strikes.
Oh shit.
I got lucky. You know, there was a lot of witnesses. It was in Anaheim. There was a lot of witnesses said that they started it. So I got lucky and I didn't get attempted murder. Otherwise, I would have got a life sentence then. But I paroled from that. And then I got out, and I thought to myself, I got 2 strikes. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to get life. That's it. At that time, in California, you get a life sentence. You're never getting out.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, I started using again, started selling drugs, and then, got in trouble for another high-speed chase, another gun, several ounces of meth, and, got 28 to life. And, I thought that was it, Did you ever get a life sentence, or you just did a little bit?
No, they gave me 120 months.
Okay, yeah. So it's, at that point in California, I thought, I'm just going to die in prison, And I thought like that for years. But, before, at one point in my life, I woke up in ad seg and I just, told myself I just don't want to do this no more. If I'm going to die in prison, I'm going to die a good person. And I just started changing. I started studying, doing self-help groups, and then, and then they changed some laws, and I went to the California Board of Parole and got granted parole on my first time.
Were there any books or anything you read, or was there a person who had an impact on you that kind of like really opened your heart up so that you can be blessed?
I think the Bible, I think God is the biggest one, but I also think that my buddy Daniel Federico, he's got life without, he's never getting out, and he was doing all these groups at the time, and I ended up being celly, and I learned a lot from him, and it's crazy that we go through our lives thinking that we know it all, that we could we can continue down this path and we're going to get a different result, as they say. And I used to listen to this guy speak. I wish I could speak like him. This guy's a great speaker. He's a great guy. He's probably never getting out. He's got life without. He keeps thinking, I talk to him on the text to California prison. They got a place you could text now. But he just got his, degree because, now he's working on his master's. He's never getting out, I hope he does. I hope they do give him clemency. But, I learned a lot from him. And I learned a lot, by, God forgiving me. I think that's been a major part of my life.
One thing about, prison is that I feel like at some point you come to like this epiphany where you wake up and you kind of look around like you're surrounded, or you heard that door click. You're like, fuck, man, because you'll be having a good dream, maybe one of your best childhood moments and you realize it was a dream.
Yeah.
And you're inside this dungeon. And even with like a date, there's no guarantee. I mean, when I was at Lompoc USP, and nobody leaves from there. Nobody's ever paroled from there. You got to go to a medium or low. Nobody, the average guy there is doing 30 years, 20 years, 10 years you're short timing. Some dude's got 5 lives plus 100 years. You're like 5 lives plus 100.
Yeah.
He's never getting out.
No.
Like the sentences are crazy, but being in that place, I just, I got to a point where I woke up, I'm like, damn, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Damn, what was the moment? Like what steps did I take that kind of like, and then you start adding, okay, I did this and did that, got away with, did this. You just start putting it all together. Like you said, that one instance, and you guys, people think it's a party in there, but like there's a moment, you're gonna wake up, man, you're gonna realize the party, there ain't no party.
And that's funny you say that because that's pretty much everybody when they get older in prison. They're not gonna admit it, but they're miserable, man. There's no way they could be happy what they're doing. A lot of them stick with it. I know guys that are still with it, man. I mean, I guess they're just fueled by the devil. I don't know, but they have no compassion. But they can't be happy.
Yeah.
You can't be happy like that. And will they ever change? Fuck.
But I know that I've experienced where I literally go by people or had conversations and I say like, that guy's a demon. You can feel the energy.
Oh yeah, there's
you know what I mean? Some really dark energy.
You could look into I could look into somebody's eyes and say, yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you doing? Excuse me. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
And I ran over there. I was friends with these guys.
Yeah.
Like, and you just know.
Well, you got to know, how to deal with these dudes because there's guys you heard stories and you deal with them, but it's almost like a psychological game because this guy's playing the game, you're playing the game. You're trying to not disorientate yourself. You don't want the guy to get pissed because then it creates a situation. You're not scared of him, but at the same time, you're just being cool.
Well, it's not even that.
Yeah.
It's, you're cool with this dude, but then you do something wrong or something, that has power that can put you in the hat, and that same guy's going to cut your head off as soon as he gets a chance, dude.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
Yeah.
You're friends with all these dudes, close friends with these guys, but as soon as somebody with power tells them that you got to go, they'll cut your head off, and they won't think twice about it.
Dude, I like you said, I've seen guys who are like, he's the big dude, strong in our yard, and I've seen him go and walk right to the lieutenant and go right to the check-in.
Yeah.
Like somebody hit the yard, like that dude didn't do this on another yard, or he's hiding. Maybe he thought nobody was gonna pop up, but it takes one person to show up and then show like this guy's a piece of shit or he's not who he says he is. Dude, like you said, it flips instantly.
Yeah.
It's not a joke in there. And then, when people brag about certain, like I know a lot of guys, and I'm blessed that you're on the channel, bro, but some dudes, they're living a life, they don't even want to come on because they don't want people to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because they don't glorify it.
They don't. And some people, they don't want to talk about their stories, and I respect that. I know some guys that are out right now that got lucky to even get out that would never come up on here that are straight gangsters. That I got a friend right now, like we were talking about, that he's just one of them guys.
Yeah.
I love him to death.
Yeah.
He's one of my best friends. He was in my wedding, but he's just one of those guys, dude. Like he spent all his time in the 80s in San Quentin, back when San Quentin was, real.
Rock and
like
rolling,
crazy.
Yeah.
And he's the best dude in the world, but you could just see it. Like he was my cellie for like 3 years at one prison. And I used to trip on him, man, because he was just so he's so smart with dealing with people.
You got to be.
But he's so dangerous too at the same time. Like I've seen him he's so mellow, but then when somebody does something, that's it.
Yeah.
I
got a buddy like that too.
Yeah.
Well, I respect the game like that, and that's why I said like having you come on the channel and kind of break down like some of the stuff because hearing it from me, it's like one perspective, and everybody's experience in prison is different. Like you were in a state, and you've heard other people talk about certain things in there, and to break down like even like the politics, like I know like white guys politic different, and paperwork gets serious. It ain't no joke. The guys I know, the ship is tight. Like you guys don't, in the state, they don't play with your paperwork. You got certain charges, certain things, dude. You're not getting a pass. You're not ski skirting like other people. Like let it fly.
No, it's serious. You know, in California, the politics in prison, you know, like even the Northerners, the blacks, there's not, it's really not like that. On some of the yards, like the 180 yards, it is, but overall, it's really, it's
loose,
really
yeah.
not. It's
Yeah.
loose. Like they could have, you know, I hate to say it, but they have guys that have bad charges
Yeah.
that are running the yards. You know, and I didn't know, but I've heard it. So I'm friends with the CO. He was my old building officer in High Desert, and you know, we talk. We're friends. So he would tell me all this stuff. He's retired now. You know, we're able to talk and stuff, and I'm off parole, of course. But he would tell me some crazy stories. You know, and a lot of those guys with bad charges, they ran those yards. Like if you had a bad charge and you were white or Mexican, that was a wrap.
That's a wrap.
It's over.
Yeah.
There's no getting out of it unless it's you know, like some weird, stupid case or something. But if it's like it's serious,
If they know it's legit,
yeah,
you're not.
Yeah, you're done. It's different now because they got the SMY yards, but
Yeah.
they still get in trouble on those yards too. You know, but yeah, it's different.